you buying yourself a gaming PC or upgrading your processor? Then you're in the right place. Throughout this video, we're going to explain everything you need to know about gaming CPUs, walking you through what they are and why you need them, benchmarks to guide you through bottlenecking and gaming performance, as well as the right choices to buy at every single budget. Honestly guys, it is so easy to make a big mistake whenever you're buying a gaming CPU, and it's something that I see people make time and time again because they're listening to forums and everyone says, buy this CPU, it's the best. But in actual fact, you could have saved yourself a whole bunch of money or actually spent it on something else and got an even higher frame rate if you'd been armed with the knowledge that we're going to impart in this video. So join me as we explain absolutely everything central processing unit right after a short word from this video sponsor. Corsair's brand new 6500 series of cases have arrived, bringing beauty and the beastly airflow. This mighty enclosure has space for ginormous GPUs, thick radiators and coolers, and up to a whopping 10 PC fans. And thanks to its dual chamber design, building really is a breeze, as it's super easy to get a stunning looking PC. It comes in black or white, airflow mesh or timeless glass, and you can even swap out panels for optional wooden finishes. Learn more today with the link down below. Rightio then, let's kick off with the big question first. What on earth is a gaming CPU? Well, it might actually surprise you to hear this, but a gaming CPU doesn't really exist, and it's just a marketing ploy to get you to spend more money on a processor than you probably need to. To be fair, we do have something relatively close, with that being AMD's X3D lineup of chips that do have extra cache on board that the processor can then use to reduce the latency of draw calls, thus increasing your FPS, but it's still a general purpose chip that drops into your motherboard and works essentially the same as any other CPU. And I'm always super keen to start with this element of clarity because it's very easy, especially for the uninitiated, to drop stuff on your desk. No, to end up buying a load of components that quite literally just say gaming in the title. And I'm not saying that these are better or worse than any of the others, but it is quite literally just a name. So if you are doing some research and you're buying stuff for your gaming PC, don't just buy one because it says gaming. Do your research on what difference it actually makes for gaming. And if you are going to spend a load of money on a processor, let's say, do you actually need to spend that amount of money, or could that money be spent better off somewhere else, like your graphics card, for instance? So okay, the term gaming can just be hot air. So what should I pay attention to instead? Well, let's break it down into chunks, starting with the most basic concept. A CPU is the brain of your computer. And just like your mother's weekly shopping list, it breaks down the items into a list of tasks and then executes them in order. The faster your CPU, or mum, the faster the task will get done. Some tasks are what we call single-threaded, where the chip will need to be as fast as it possibly can, whereas others are multi-threaded, where we need lots of cores to do different sets of instructions all at the same time. Now, despite the fact that you think this is probably a bad idea, we are going to stick with your mum as an example here, because I think this is a genius analogy. It's like a family trying to get the dinner ready all at the same time, okay? So let's say all that needs to be done is your mum needs to go to the shops just to pick up some groceries, right? The faster she is, the faster that task is going to get executed. Fantastic. Single-threaded, single core, okay? But let's say she's got to go to multiple shops. Well, it doesn't really matter how fast she is. She's going to be limited by the fact that she has to go to multiple shops. So it would actually be a lot more efficient. It would happen faster overall if you have 3 shops. You have 3 different people or 3 cores to execute all of those tasks. And when you get home, you don't really want her to have to muck around and actually, I don't know, set the table, put the drinks on the table, all of this stuff. Those are background tasks, and those would have actually been quicker, they would have been more efficient if the kids had done that while you were out. And that's kind of how the tasks on a computer work, if you like. The more cores you have, to an extent, the better, but it depends on the workload. If it's just one single task, one single threaded application, the faster the better, but the more stuff that needs to be done all at the same time, then the more cores are better. I think that kind of works. I'll give myself a pat on the back for that, because I think you know how it works now. Or maybe you just don't like me insulting your mum. But I didn't do it, I just acknowledged her. She's a fine lady. So yeah, okay, that wasn't the perfect analogy, but it does bear some resemblance to how your PC does indeed handle workloads. And video games are generally pretty single-threaded applications, so the more faster, stronger cores do perform better in gaming, but having multiple cores to spread the workload out and perform those background tasks all at the same time will indeed speed up the process. Now, I've actually made a full video all about the optimum number of cores that you need for gaming and how it actually affects the numbers, and the results may show you, so you can find that video in the top right corner of your screen if you want to check it out. But the long and short of it is that 8 is actually optimal at the moment, with 6, and in some cases even 4, enough for most video games. It's definitely really important though to understand that whilst a faster CPU is better, it doesn't actually always help. And generally speaking, in games, you only need your processor to be fast enough. If you spend £1,000 or $1,500 on a CPU, but then you kind of skimped on the rest, that would be an ineffective way of spending your money because your CPU is doing its job, but you get to the point where it's fast enough, and anything more than that doesn't make a difference at all. This is all down to what we call bottlenecking, and every single gaming PC has one. Doesn't matter how much you spent, a bottleneck is always caused by the slowest part of your gaming PC holding back the rest of your components. And for most gamers, this will usually be the GPU, or the graphics card. And this is because most games rely on the GPU more heavily than your RAM, SSD, and indeed your CPU. So upgrading the processor wouldn't really change a lot of people's FPS at all. If, however, you have a really high-end graphics card, or you're playing a really intense game that has lots of physics, particle effects, or a high number of characters, then you might actually be bound by the limits of your CPU. And indeed, an upgrade to the processor would serve you well. And there's actually a really easy way to think about this. And don't worry, no more mum jokes. It's very straightforward. Imagine your CPU has a maximum frame rate and your GPU has a maximum frame rate. And these will vary depending on your game and the components that you have, but the lowest one is going to be your frame rate. It doesn't matter what this is and how good this is. Again, your gap could be that, or in an ideal world, kind of trading blows, because that would mean you'd sort of got a balanced system. But yes, that's the way it works. The lowest benchmark that you're going to get is the CPU that you'll see in game. It's also worth remembering that higher resolutions and settings actually tend to hit the graphics card a lot more than the processor. So if you have a weaker CPU, you could always upgrade your monitor to a higher resolution for better image quality, or you could just increase the settings in-game, and chances are, in some cases, your frame rate could actually stay the same. But let's be honest, the biggest question you probably have right now is which brand of CPU should I go for? Should I go for Team Blue, Intel, or Team Red, AMD? And you've probably heard a lot of different things about both, and let me tell you, it's probably more complicated than it's ever been. You see, traditionally, Intel has been the de facto choice for a lot of PC gamers, as ever since the i5 2500K, they've been pumping out great and consistent gaming CPUs without ever really missing a beat, even if some of their chips were pretty lazy refreshes. Things changed massively though when AMD launched Ryzen back in 2017, bringing higher core counts to the masses, and ever since their third generation, they've been really easy to recommend, with great features, performance, pricing, and pretty low power usage. Up until the last couple of months, the choice would have been between some reliable but power-hungry Intel chips with their i5, i7, and i9s, or the better value and more focused Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7s. But unfortunately, at the time of filming, Intel was actually having some serious issues with their 13th and 14th gen desktop gaming chips, to the point where some of them are failing and they're having to extend the warranties, and they're actually issuing microcode updates to BIOSes to hopefully fix and alleviate this issue. But this causes two problems. Firstly, we don't know if this is going to impact performance. These BIOSes are landing now. I think a lot of them are in beta, but we'll be testing them to see how that impacts performance. But arguably the bigger issue is that we don't actually know whether this will entirely fix the issue of reliability, because it takes time to actually have these in the wild and to see whether this works. So recommending one of these at the time of filming, it's not impossible, but it's not something we feel necessarily comfortable doing, because you don't know 100% that that issue is going to be resolved. If you can get one in a sale, get it at a great price, and you're aware of the issue and the impacts it could have, great. Go for it. But otherwise, if you are looking at Intel, then as we'll discuss a little bit later in this video when we get to all the recommendations, there are still some really good deals on the 12th gen that doesn't seem to be affected by this issue, like the 12400 that would still be very easy to recommend, and as I say, you won't have to deal with these issues. But yes, Intel at the time of filming, a little bit trickier sell. But hang on a minute, son. Before you go thinking that AMD is perfect and you have to buy Team Red, I'm afraid to say we've literally just tested the brand new Ryzen 9000 chips, and so far they are incredibly disappointing. Barely any increase to gaming performance, yet a huge increase on the real-world pricing despite a drop in the RRP. But hey, no mass reliability issues, not the time of filming at least anyway. But as I say, don't worry, we're going to walk you through all the benchmarks and recommendations in just a tick, but before you choose, it's also worth bearing in mind the platform that the CPU needs to go into. AMD currently use the AM5 socket, which will accept any AM5 compatible processor, as long as the BIOS is up to date, whilst Intel uses the LGA 1700 socket on 12th, 13th and 14th gen processors, again, as long as the BIOS is up to date. Different motherboards can also have completely completely different features, but generally speaking, the differences come down to the PCIe speeds and number of lanes, Wi-Fi, overclocking support, DDR5 versus DDR4 memory, and the number of onboard headers and ports. There's a lot to think about before you make the purchase. And then finally, the last thing that you should absolutely consider when buying your CPU is actually the power consumption. And I know,
Piece of Centric, that's so boring. I don't care. My mum pays for my electricity. I've got solar panels on the roof. I don't care.
well, actually, it matters more than you might think. And money is not just about how much it costs to actually use, but also the cost of the cooling in the first place. Because if you buy like a really efficient 65-watt chip, something like the Ryzen 7 7600, that actually doesn't really need much cooling at all. And this will mean that you could get away with something small, which is free actually if you go for the 7600 non-X, because it comes with a cooler inside the box, but definitely something that's relatively inexpensive, maybe around about $30, $35, that will get you by. Whereas if you buy like an i9 or something like this, 1300 KS, then that is going to require like a 360 rad, and you're going to need to spend so much money on it that, again, your already expensive CPU just got even more expensive. And this also generates a load more heat, so on a summer's day like today, it comes into your room, it's unpleasant. If you have AC, great, but here in England we don't really do that. But then also in terms of noise, obviously that's generating more noise into your room, which might bother you, or you might not, maybe wearing headphones. I don't know, but personally speaking, where possible, I would actually like to have a lower powered chip that still has great performance, but then I don't need to spend as much money on cooling and I don't have to worry about noise or the heat so much. But maybe that's just me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But I've done enough waffling now, so how about we get down to the important stuff, which is the recommendations at every single price point. We've done so many tests to bring you this information, so without further ado, let me hand you over to the man with the numbers, the one, the only, Bench Carl. And don't forget that current pricing on everything is located down below. Hooray!
Hello everybody, it's me, Bench Carl, back with some more graphs for you lovely people. First up we have Halo Infinite, a game that performed really well across all the CPUs we tested. Though as you can see at each resolution, there is a clear favour in 1% lows towards the Ryzen CPUs, and if you're playing with a high refresh rate display, this is something you could notice during gameplay. Planet Zoo, however, is a little bit different. With a game like this, anything above 60 FPS is fine, and every CPU we tested had no issues keeping the average and 1% lows above 60 FPS. I was really impressed with the £99 12400F here, offering a great experience for the price. As we step things up a bit with Horizon Forbidden West, you can once again see higher average 1% lows for the Ryzen CPUs compared to the Intel ones. This is also a title where their 7800X3D just dominates the competition. The gap is smaller at 4K as you'd expect, but it just gets further and further ahead the more you lower that resolution down. Cyberpunk at 4K with ray tracing enabled sees all the CPUs stuck at the exact same frame rate, with the only real difference being the 1% lows. This is definitely a title where we're completely GPU bound, and a CPU upgrade makes little difference. As we drop the resolution down, you can see the gap start to appear. The 12th gen CPUs fall away, and the 7800X3D just steams ahead once again. Disabling ray tracing brings our CPUs much closer together, with all of the CPUs offering similar levels of performance across each resolution. The only real outliers are again the same CPUs, the 7800X3D leading the pack, whilst the older 12th gen Intel chips fall away from the newer CPUs as they're starting to show their age. Spider-Man Miles Morales seems to be a game that favours more cores, with the higher core Ryzen 9s and Intel chips putting daylight between themselves and the lower core parts. The magic of the 7800X3D just can't be matched, however. Even with fewer cores and lower power consumption, it comfortably leads at every resolution. When it comes to the Cinebench multi-core test, more cores is king. Then after that, it's all about clock speed and IPC to boost that single core performance. This is why the newer Ryzen CPUs take such a big lead over the previous generation in this test. It's a shame that just isn't the case for gaming. Taking a look at the averages across our games tested, you can see that there's one clear winner. No matter the resolution, the 7800X3D leads everything. The way more expensive Intel i9 and i7 CPUs come closest at 4K, but the 7800X3D offers incredibly smooth 1% lows as well. The same story applies at 1440p and 1080p, though the Ryzen 9 CPUs look a little bit more competitive at the lower resolutions. But you should only be grabbing one of the higher core parts if you can make use of them. Now I've touched on it briefly, but just look at this chart for the maximum power draw by the CPU. Like Marcus said earlier, lower power draw generally means less heat and ultimately cheaper cooling. It can also enable you to get the most out of your CPU without having to accommodate a 360ml liquid cooler, or perhaps even bigger. Now let's talk about pricing and budget. If you've got less than £200 to spend and your budget is super tight, then the older 12th gen Intel CPUs offer good value and are free from the issues affecting Intel chips at the moment. Though there's no real upgrade path unless you can get a 14th gen or 13th gen chip in a few years' time for a cheap price, assuming it's free of any sort of crashing issues. But if you want a bit more platform longevity and higher average FPS, the 7600 CPUs are a really solid purchase, even with the most high-end GPUs. Even though we didn't test it, I'll give a quick shout out to the Ryzen 5 7500F. It's a 6-core Zen 4 part with no integrated GPU and slightly lower clock speeds than the 7600. But for the price that costs on AliExpress of £115, it's definitely worth considering. For under £300 though, the value decreases, but you should be getting more cores. I'd generally ignore the 9600X until the price comes down, more in line with the 7600X, as the performance increase is just minimal. The Ryzen 7 options offer worse value for gamers, but they have more cores for multitasking or more CPU intensive loads like video editing, streaming or simulations. Though it is worth mentioning, like we saw with Spider-Man Miles Morales, more cores can come in handy for particular games. If you can stretch your budget a little bit further though, for under £315 you can get a 12-core CPU like the Ryzen 9 7900. Whilst it's not as good for gaming as the similarly priced 7800X3D, it does offer better performance outside of gaming loads. But if you're a pure gamer, the 7800X3D is a better value option than the 7700X or 14600K, whilst costing around £30 to £40 more. But when you take a look at the options we've tested, I recommend you think about what GPU you plan on pairing with it. We've tested all our games with an RTX 4090 to highlight the differences between each CPU. But if you're going for an RTX 4070 or an RX 7700 XT, you'll find yourself to be more GPU bound than CPU bound in a lot of titles. So then your CPU choice will come down to what else you do outside of gaming and your budget available. But if you're still a bit unsure about what is the best value for you, here's what I would recommend. The 12400F if you're building on a budget and you're happy to get a new motherboard, RAM and CPU when you upgrade. The same goes for the 12600K. It's a good value option, but again, you don't really have much upgradability in the future. If you're looking at more performance and a bit more of an upgrade path, then I recommend the Ryzen 7600. I prefer the lower power consumption and the heat generated by the 7600 compared to the 7600X, and the FPS is basically the same. Not to mention you get a cooler included with the 7600 non-X part. If you want more cores and more frames, then I'd encourage you to look at the Ryzen 7 7700, Ryzen 9 7900, and Ryzen 7 7800X3D. If your priority is gaming, then grab the X3D chip. You won't regret it. It's the coolest, most power-efficient desktop CPU for gaming right now, not to mention the fastest. But if you want more cores for your workloads outside of gaming, the 7900 and 7700 are fantastic options at very close price points. If you're a gamer, trust me, you don't need a Ryzen 9 or Intel i9 CPU. No matter what anybody tells you, you'll just be using more power, needing a bigger power supply and a beefier CPU cooler. You'll only need the 16 plus core chips if you're actually making use of them outside of gaming. So if you're planning on spending £500+ on a CPU, make sure you'll actually be using all of it, otherwise you could just be saving some money and buying a better GPU instead.
So then everyone, there we are. All of our recommendations at every single price point. I really hope this video has been useful. It's taken us ages, so if you have enjoyed it, please smash the like button and get yourself subscribed for more videos just like this, including our upcoming graphics card buyer's guide that will walk you through everything that you need to know in 2024. And if you do want to check out current pricing on anything featured in this video, you can find that link down below with our affiliate links. And while you're down there, why not bask in the bonanza of the Corsair 6500 series of cases? These stunning new chassis take your build to the next level, with support for cooling at the top, bottom, rear and side, in addition to showing your PC parts in their best light. It's dual chamber, so getting a tidy build is easy. There are 4 USB-As and a Type-C, and you can even get the front panel in mesh airflow or luxurious glass. Upgrade today with the link down below. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.